Ladies and gentlemen, in a land where the sun scorched the earth by day and the coyotes sang by night, a lone cowboy made a choice that would change his fate forever. Out on the frontier, where trust was scarce, danger was plenty, and every dawn felt like a gamble, he crossed paths with an Apache woman carrying more secrets than the desert wind itself. He offered her shelter, a roof against the cold night, a fire to rest beside, nothing more than simple kindness in a world that had forgotten what kindness looked like. But the Wild West has a way of turning small moments into turning points, and by sunrise, everything had shifted. Because the next morning, as the first light painted the horizon gold, she looked him straight in the eyes and asked a question that hit him harder than any outlaw's bullet. Is your offer still good? And right there, between dawn and destiny, began a story about courage, trust, and the quiet choices that carve a man's legacy in the dust of the frontier. In the vast silence of the frontier, where every whispered breeze carried stories older than any town on the map, the cowboy's day began like all the others. Saddle tightened, canteen secured, and his mind focused on nothing more than the long stretch of trail ahead. But fate has a habit of stepping out when least expected, especially in the Wild West, where one moment of chance can rewrite everything. As he rode along the riverbank, the morning light shimmering across the water, he caught sight of movement. A figure crouched near the edge, half hidden by reeds and shadow. Instinct made his hand drift toward the revolver at his hip, but something softer, something human, stopped him cold. There she was, an Apache woman, her clothes torn by the merciless desert brush, fatigue heavy in her posture. She wasn't bathing, nor was she gathering water. She was simply trying to steady herself, as though the river were the only thing keeping her from collapsing entirely. Her presence alone was enough to make any traveler uneasy. Frontier tensions ran deep, and trust between cultures was rarer than rain in July. But the cowboy saw something different that morning, something more honest than fear or suspicion. He saw a person worn down by hardship, someone who had walked far, fought hard, and carried more pain than her shoulders should have ever borne. He slowed his horse, the leather creaking softly, and for a long moment he simply watched, assessing whether approaching would help or harm. Out here, assumptions could get a man killed, but so could ignoring someone who needed help. The woman glanced over her shoulder, her eyes sharp, guarded, but there was a flicker of exhaustion in them, the kind that couldn't lie. She didn't reach for a weapon, didn't stand or threaten. She only held his gaze, waiting to see whether he was danger or mercy. The cowboy dismounted carefully, keeping his hands visible. The river carried the sounds of their quiet standoff, the splash of water, the rustle of distant cottonwoods. He spoke first, not with authority, but with simple human decency. A gentle question, an offer of water, a promise of no harm. She didn't answer at first, but her silence wasn't refusal, it was calculation. Trust, for her, had a cost. For a woman traveling alone in the unforgiving wild, even acknowledging a stranger took courage. Step by step, the tension softened. She allowed him closer, not out of dependence, but necessity. He noticed the cuts on her arms, the way her breath trembled, as though she hadn't truly rested in days. The cowboy wasn't a man prone to pity. Life on the frontier made that dangerous, but compassion was still carved deep into him. He realized then that this encounter wasn't random. It was a calling of character. Anyone could ride past, pretend they didn't see, but he wasn't that man. And so beside the river that morning, an unspoken understanding formed between them. Not trust, not yet, but a recognition that the world was too harsh to face alone. That singular moment, born from chance, marked the beginning of a story neither of them could have predicted, and one neither would ever forget. The cowboy's offer of shelter wasn't something he planned or even hesitated over. It rose up from inside him, the way a man instinctively reaches for a fallen traveler or steadies a spooked horse. After seeing the exhaustion in the Apache woman's eyes and recognizing the weight she carried, he knew she had nowhere safe to go before nightfall. Out on the frontier, the dark wasn't merely the absence of light. It was a gathering of dangers that didn't care who you were. Predators, outlaws, cold that sank into the bones. And he couldn't, in good conscience, ride away and leave her to face it alone. Yet his offer wasn't wrapped in expectation or hope of reward. It wasn't a bid for gratitude or companionship. It was simply the act of a man shaped by honor, by the unwritten code that decent folks lived by, even when the world around them chose not to. When he told her she could stay the night at his cabin, his voice was calm, steady, almost casual, but beneath it was sincerity, a tone she hadn't heard from strangers in a very long time. He didn't step closer, didn't crowd her, didn't act as though she owed him something for accepting help. Instead, he stepped back and let her make the choice. That alone showed her more respect than many had ever given her. He knew full well the history between settlers and Apache people, the distrust carved into both sides. Offering shelter to her wasn't just an act of kindness. It was an act of courage, too. Folks might talk, might judge, might even accuse him of harboring danger. But the cowboy had never lived his life according to gossip or fear. He lived it by the compass in his chest. The woman studied him quietly, trying to read the intentions behind his words. She watched his hands, his posture, the way he spoke without shifting his weight or avoiding her gaze. Everything about him showed honesty, not softness, not weakness, but a steady kind of integrity that couldn't be faked. Even so, she didn't accept right away. For her, every offer in life had come with a price, sometimes hidden, sometimes demanded. She had learned the hard way that kindness often had strings attached. But something in the cowboy's presence told her this was different. He wasn't trying to rescue her or claim her. He was simply offering a safe roof for one night, because anyone, Apache or not, deserved that much dignity. He led his horse a few steps ahead and paused, giving her space to follow if she chose. When she finally rose from the riverbank and walked behind him, it wasn't out of obligation, but out of trust, cautiously extended. As they made their way toward his cabin, he kept a respectful distance, never forcing conversation. He simply ensured she stayed within the protection of his stride, ready to defend her if something threatened. The offer he had made wasn't about romantic notions or hidden desires. It was rooted in the simple belief that doing the right thing mattered, even when no one else was watching. That choice, born from pure honor, became the spark that would alter everything that followed. It was a gesture that reached far beyond shelter. It marked the beginning of a fragile understanding, one built on respect rather than expectation. And it set in motion a connection neither of them could have foreseen. The Apache woman's silence during their walk to the cabin wasn't the quiet of comfort. It was the quiet of someone who had learned to guard every thought, every emotion, every piece of herself that the world might try to take. She moved with the grace of someone trained by the land, yet her steps revealed the weight of battles she never spoke of. The cowboy could see it in the way she watched the trees, always scanning for danger. In the Wild West, many travelers feared ambushes or predators, but her vigilance wasn't about the usual threats. It was the alertness of someone who had been let down too many times, who had learned that danger often came wearing a familiar face. Her struggle, though unspoken, was clear enough. She carried the exhaustion of someone who hadn't slept safely in days, perhaps weeks. There was a stiffness in her shoulders, the kind that came from pushing herself too far, because stopping simply wasn't an option. The cuts on her arms and the dust on her clothes weren't the marks of carelessness. They were the signs of survival. Whatever journey she had been on before their paths crossed, it had forced her to choose strength over comfort again and again. And while the cowboy didn't know her story, he didn't need all the details to understand pain when he saw it. Inside her chest, a different kind of struggle simmered. Accepting help was not something she did easily. In her world, survival depended on independence, on self-reliance. She had learned that leaning on others often came with a cost too steep to bear. Yet when she looked at the cowboy, she saw something rare, someone who offered help without reaching for control. Still, trust was not something she could hand over lightly. The wounds shaping her weren't only physical. They were memories, disappointments, and betrayals layered over time. Every step toward his cabin was a step over an invisible boundary she had kept around herself for years. The cowboy felt the tension around her, like a faint tremor in the air. He didn't try to break the silence or pry into her past. Instead, he gave her space to breathe, to observe, to decide for herself whether she was safe. It was his quiet understanding, his lack of pressure, that made the biggest difference. She wasn't treated like a burden, nor like someone who needed saving. She was treated like a human being, capable, strong, but deserving of rest. That simple, subtle respect was something she hadn't experienced often. As they reached the cabin, she paused at the doorway. Her eyes traced the wooden walls, the steady smoke rising from the chimney, the saddle propped neatly by the entrance. Everything spoke of order, stability, things she hadn't known in a long time. Part of her feared stepping inside, afraid that accepting warmth might make her vulnerable again. Another part of her, quieter but still present, longed for even a single night without running. Her unspoken fears lingered in the space between them, but the cowboy didn't rush her. And in that moment, she realized something important. For once, she wasn't being pushed, chased, or cornered. She was being offered something she hadn't felt in far too long, a choice. And though she said nothing, her eyes revealed it all, a cautious hope, fragile but alive, waiting to see if this small mercy could truly be trusted. When dawn finally crept across the sky, the world outside the cabin shifted from quiet darkness to soft gold, and with it came a moment neither of them could have anticipated. The night had passed without danger. No distant howls, no approaching footsteps, just the peaceful crackle of the cabin's fire and the shared silence between two people who barely knew one another. But dawn has a way of exposing what the night hides. And as the first light spilled through the small window, the fragile balance between them was put to its first real test. The woman woke before the cowboy, her instincts sharpened by years of uncertainty. She rose quietly from the small bed he had offered, taking a moment to observe the room again in the clarity of daylight. Everything looked different now, more real, more vulnerable. The walls that felt comforting last night now reminded her she was inside a stranger's space. The kindness he showed still lingered, but morning had a way of stirring old doubts. She wondered whether the shelter offered under the moonlight would still stand under the sun. Experience had taught her that some men softened their hearts at night, only to harden them again when the world became bright. The cowboy stirred as she moved, stretching the stiffness from his shoulders. His first instinct wasn't suspicion or defensiveness. It was awareness. He sensed her unease before she spoke a single word. He didn't reach for his gun or try to stop her from moving around. He simply sat up slowly, letting her see his actions for what they were: calm, open, intentional. He knew that the morning would determine the future of whatever understanding had begun between them. Last night, offering help had been easy, but today required something more: consistency. She turned toward him, her expression unreadable, her eyes steady. This was the moment she needed clarity, needed to see whether he was truly the man he had seemed to be by the river. With a breath she didn't realize she had been holding, she asked the question that held all her fear and all her hope in one fragile sentence: "Is your offer still good?" The words hung in the air like dust caught in sunlight, and in that silence, far heavier things were being asked than what the sentence implied. She wanted to know if his respect was temporary, if his kindness was conditional, if a new day erased the safety she had felt the night before. This wasn't just about staying another night. It was about whether he would treat her as a guest or a problem, as a person or a burden. The cowboy understood that. He could hear the layers beneath her question. He didn't rush to answer, not because he doubted, but because he wanted to choose his words with the same honesty he had shown her since the beginning. He set aside any pride, any defensiveness, and met her gaze with steady sincerity. His response wasn't loud, wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. What mattered was that it was real. That morning conversation wasn't about exchanging information. It was about trust. Shaky, unspoken, delicate trust, being tested for the first time. And in the soft light of dawn, it was this moment, more than the night before, that decided the path their story would take. The cowboy didn't answer her question with theatrics or grand promises. Instead, he took a quiet breath and let his heart speak before his mouth did. In the wild frontier, a man's character wasn't measured by the words he could string together, but by the choices he made when no one else was watching. And this choice, this moment, was one he knew would shape not only her future, but his own. He understood exactly what she was asking, even if the words themselves were simple. She wasn't just asking if she could stay another night. She was asking who he truly was. She was asking whether he was the kind of man who stayed true to his word when the world turned its eyes away. She was asking whether she was safe. He stood slowly, not wanting to startle her, and placed his hat on the table instead of his head. A silent symbol that he wasn't going anywhere, wasn't preparing to send her off or regain control. Everything about his posture spoke of calm integrity. He looked her directly in the eyes, not with authority or possession, but with a steady honesty that carried more weight than any oath. His answer came with no hesitation, no change in tone, no uncertainty. By simply reaffirming what he had already offered, he proved that his kindness wasn't a moment of weakness, a passing whim, or a favor he intended to collect on later. It was who he was. For the first time, she felt the solidity of his character. It wasn't cloaked in assumptions or hidden behind good intentions. It was clear and simple, rooted in a code he lived by long before she ever crossed his path. He wasn't helping her to look noble, nor was he doing it out of pity. He was doing it because it was the right thing to do. Out here on the frontier, where most men hardened their hearts to survive, someone like him stood out like a lantern in the dark. She watched him carefully, still expecting to find some hidden angle. But all she saw was consistency. The same quiet strength he showed by the river, the same respect he carried through the night, the same gentleness he offered in the morning light. And in that stillness between them, something shifted. For the first time since their encounter, her shoulders eased, not entirely, but enough to show she felt the truth in his words. The cowboy's decision that morning didn't just define him in her eyes. It defined him in his own. Helping her wasn't an obligation. It wasn't a burden. It was a reflection of the values that guided him through every mile of the harsh landscape he called home. And his willingness to stand firm, even when most men wouldn't, spoke volumes about the kind of man he chose to be. He didn't treat her as someone who needed saving, nor as someone who owed him. He treated her as an equal, someone deserving of safety, dignity, and choice. In a world as unforgiving as the Wild West, where survival often overshadowed humanity, his decision set him apart. It marked him not by how fast he could draw his gun or how far he could ride, but by the strength of his principles. And in that moment, a foundation was laid. One built not on force or desperation, but on trust, slowly taking root between two people whose lives had collided by both chance and fate. What began as a simple act of kindness slowly transformed into something far more meaningful, though neither of them recognized it immediately. When the cowboy reaffirmed his offer without wavering, without changing his tone, and without expecting anything in return, the atmosphere inside that small frontier cabin shifted. It wasn't dramatic. No sudden spark, no grand gesture, but a quiet, undeniable change rooted in respect. For the first time, the Apache woman allowed herself to truly look at him, not as a stranger or a threat, but as a man whose actions aligned with his words. That alone made him unlike most she had encountered on the long, unforgiving roads she had traveled. The bond that began forming between them wasn't born from gratitude or dependence. It formed in the spaces between their silence, in the steadiness of his presence, in the way he treated her as someone capable rather than fragile. She saw it when he stepped aside to let her fetch her own water, not assuming she needed him to do it for her. She felt it when he placed tools on the table, offering them without explanation, trusting she knew how to use them. And she understood it deeply when he spoke to her not with pity or careful politeness, but with the same natural tone he would use with any person he respected. The cowboy, too, noticed subtle things he hadn't expected to. He saw how she listened before speaking, how her eyes scanned the world with a precision that came from a lifetime of learning from the land. He saw how she moved, light on her feet, alert but not fearful, strong yet carrying the exhaustion of someone who had fought too long alone. But most of all, he saw her courage, the kind that wasn't loud or attention-seeking. It was a quiet resilience, a steady fire that refused to go out even when the world tried to smother it. As the day stretched on, their interactions remained simple. Sharing a small meal, tending to the cabin's chores, giving each other space while slowly learning to coexist. Neither pushed the other for details, neither rushed to fill the silence with unnecessary words. The bond forming between them was not built from urgency, but from the natural rhythm of two people discovering they didn't need to guard themselves quite as tightly as before. Respect became the foundation, trust became the bridge, and something unspoken, not yet named, lingered in the air like a soft warmth neither of them dared acknowledge. What mattered most was that their connection wasn't shaped by circumstance. It wasn't because she had nowhere else to go, or because he happened upon her out of sheer luck. It was because both of them recognized something in each other they had not found elsewhere. A steadiness in him, a strength in her, a shared understanding that life on the frontier was hard enough without adding cruelty or deception to it. By the time the sun dipped low again, casting long shadows across the land, their bond had already begun to take root. No promises had been made, no expectations spoken, but they both felt it, the beginning of something quietly powerful, something forged not by desperation, but by mutual respect. And in the vast, untamed wilderness of the Wild West, that kind of connection was rarer than gold. As we reach the end of this journey, one truth stands clear. The Wild West was never just a battleground of dust, danger, and survival. It was a place where character was tested in the quiet moments, where a single choice could shape a destiny, and where unexpected connections could rise from the harshest circumstances. The cowboy's simple offer of shelter, made without hesitation or expectation, became the turning point of two lives shaped by very different paths. And the Apache woman's courage, her willingness to trust again, one cautious step at a time, showed that strength isn't always found in battles fought, but in walls slowly lowered. Their story reminds us that trust is not built in grand gestures, but in consistency. That true honor comes from doing what's right, even when no one is watching. And that kindness, when given without strings, can change the course of a life. In the midst of a world defined by conflict and uncertainty, these two strangers found something rare. A bond rooted in respect rather than obligation, in understanding rather than fear. This tale is more than frontier legend. It's a reflection of who we choose to be when the moment arrives. Just like that cowboy, we each face chances to extend a hand, to show compassion, to stand firm in our values. And just like the Apache woman, we all carry battles unseen, victories unspoken, and the hope that somewhere along the way, we'll meet someone who sees us without judgment. So let this story remind us, strength lies not only in surviving the wilderness, but in choosing humanity within it. In a world that often divides, their bond stands as a testament to what can happen when courage meets kindness, when trust meets integrity, and when two paths, so different, so distant, cross at exactly the right moment. Ladies and gentlemen, may we carry that lesson with us. Sometimes the smallest offer, given with sincerity, becomes the beginning of a legacy neither heart expected, but both will forever remember.